Election Day is just over a month away, and campaign 2020 is headed into the home stretch. This week saw a raucous first presidential debate of the campaign, a bombshell New York Times report on President Trump's taxes, and the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the U.S. Supreme Court. In addition, new COVID-19 cases and deaths continue to rise in many parts of the country as local communities deal with the unprecedented challenges from this pandemic. We'll get to it all this week on The State We're In. We begin with the first showdown of the debate stage between President Trump and former Vice President Biden. A debate full of insults and interruptions, and with the moderator, Chris Wallace, having to admonish the president several times for his interruptions. For some perspective and analysis, I spoke with Western New England University history professor John Baick.
It was the most gripping, most absurd moment in American political history and living memory. It really physically affected me. My pulse was elevated. I was physically shaking. It was the most disturbing thing I've seen on live TV in a long time. And I watched the Red Sox this year.
Would you say this was probably the most disturbing, the worst presidential debate in history?
Well, it wasn't a debate, and we need to be very careful about this to establish some sort of false equivalence. It wasn't as if it was a he said, just bantering and immature children. The vice president actually came to debate, but he was interrupted, 70-some times? And some of the times where he interrupted the president, it was when he was trying to get his time back. This was a one-sided barrage, a one-sided assault, the likes of which we have never seen in a debate before, nothing close to this. Forget Lincoln Douglas, forget Kennedy Nixon. This was an assault on the senses, and that's what the president wanted it to be. He clearly wanted it to be about him.
Now, when we look at debates of this nature, everybody wants to know, was there a winner? Do you see a winner coming out of last night's debate?
Depending upon how you look at it, in terms of trying to shape the election, the president clearly needed a big win to sort of reset the narrative. So in that sense, the president lost. And the vice president needed to establish that all of these accusations and all of these sinister comments about his senility and about his sundowning were not true. And he very clearly established that he could control his faculties and control his arguments. But in terms of a win, it really can't be a win when there wasn't a debate. And he had clearly rehearsed these 1 and 2 minute long answers, and he was never able to get out more than a few seconds. So I guess on a technicality, Biden did not participate and Trump lost. This is basically a disqualification before it even got going.
Now, in terms of the campaign moving forward, for those people who still are undecided at this point, did the performance move the needle in any way in terms of people coming over to either Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of movement. I suspect a little bit in the direction of the vice president, and that's something that the president clearly will see as a problem. The Supreme Court was giving him some momentum, the pick he gets to have. But I think there's going to be a lot of people who are thinking about their vote, thinking how they're going to do it. The president basically declared American democracy to be broken last night. He told his supporters to go to ballot boxes, to not trust people to watch, to not trust the whole system is rigged. He basically declared that the operation of democracy, as has been practiced for hundreds of years, is broken, and that he cannot lose unless he is cheated out of this. With his comments about the Proud Boys, who he deputized and turned into a militia last night, the president effectively, and this is inexplicable and strange, he declared a civil war on his own country. He's the president, yet he has already basically planned for an electoral loss and a way of contesting this. He has tried to weaponize the courts and tried to weaponize the Justice Department and Health and Human Services. And in a way, it all just seems so surreal and strange. But last night, how can anyone have any doubts that this president will do anything he can get away with to win? He is someone who is going all in on every hand. He has nothing to lose, and he's playing with house money. He's playing with our money, our tax dollars, because at this point, he clearly has no money of his own, either as a campaign or as a person.
How would you rate Joe Biden's performance during this debate? Did he do what he had to do? How did he hold up?
He certainly did what he needed to do, and that term you used, "hold up," was absolutely crucial. If at any point he had shown any signs of senility, any signs that he wasn't all there, would have been the kind of moment that the Trump campaign would have pounced on. I mean, one sort of side point, the vice president is a stutterer, and what the president was trying to do was neurologically disrupt the vice president with the constant needling and constant interruptions. And there were some moments where the vice president stuttered, but that kind of stammer is quite explicable. It's something that all of us do once in a while. The vice president didn't seal the deal. He wasn't able to deliver his arguments because he simply was interrupted over and over. But in terms of grading him, perhaps it's uncharitable to say that it was incomplete because he didn't get to participate. I'll give the vice president a B on this, but clearly, if he had been a little bit more forceful, if Wallace had been a little bit more forceful, there could have been some knockout blows. But this was not a knockout blow. The president is wounded, but he's been wounded for a while now.
Professor Baick, what do you anticipate for the second presidential debate coming up on October 15th? I understand it's going to be a little different format, more like a town meeting format.
Well, it's clear that the president might agree to something and he's going to violate those terms. Short of muting him on a Zoom call or placing him in some sort of isolation booth, I think he's going to use the power of speech, the power of body language. If we remember back to 2016, the president then citizen Trump, interrupted Secretary Clinton over and over with his microphone and also physically loomed over her. I wonder if in this town hall, the president is going to use his size, his he still has this sign of athleticism to try to dominate the vice president, to try to be the alpha. I don't know if that's going to be quite possible in the age of COVID and pandemic. He won't be able to physically approach him, but expect the president to again throw haymaker after haymaker. He cannot go presidential. That won't work for him. He's going to have to try to rattle Biden in such a way and expect a different version of what you saw last night. But I'm going to take some Benadryl before the debate.
I want to switch topics now. We've only got a couple of minutes left in our segment, but do want to ask you about the New York Times report that came out with regard to President Trump's taxes. How do you feel that's going to impact the president's chances, if at all?
Well, I think the story might have been different if the timing was different. I do think that the timing of it gets sort of swallowed up by the debate. And in that sense, I guess the president gets a small win. I don't think this changes his support. His base of support has never diminished, even when he praised white supremacists. So among his supporters, it won't change anything. Among undecideds, I'm not sure if this really matters as much to them, if the president is successful or not. He seems like he's presidential, seems like he's successful, and he certainly is the president. I think this just actually confirms what a lot of journalists who have been following Donald Trump's career their whole life has said. He is not a good businessman. What he is good at seeming rich. He is basically our first reality TV star, the first celebrity. He was a Kardashian before he was a Kardashian existed. But it doesn't matter because in America and with our media and with our 24 news cycle, it simply matters what image you portray. So I don't see that really making much of a difference. I think it may show why Trump has a certain urgency. If he loses the election, he's going to be facing gigantic personal debts, and his entire family empire could come tumbling down. He needs to win this election to maintain financial stability, but I don't see this changing a lot of votes.
And one final question, where time is running short. Wanted to get your thoughts on Amy Coney Barrett. The president nominated her to the U.S. Supreme Court. If she's approved, what's the significance of this going to be in terms of a 6-3 conservative U.S. Supreme Court? What will be the impact there?
In the end, the Supreme Court justices and the other federal judges that the president has nominated and had confirmed, these in the end may make the biggest difference, may be his biggest legacy. I think American democracy actually is kind of broken, not dead, maybe mostly dead, but the future of our law is going to be conservative because of this court. The only way a Democrat can see a way around a 6-3 court and a very conservative federal judiciary is to have overwhelming margins in the House and the Senate, something like you saw in the New Deal. I don't know if that's in the cards. A court is not all powerful. It is a a force to stop things. So it could stop the Affordable Care Act, it could stop gay rights, it could stop Roe v. Wade, but of course it can't enact legislation on its own. So if any of these things are overturned by this new court, and she is going to be confirmed, it's going to be up to America's legislatures to rethink our laws and perhaps draft something more enduring. But that remains to be seen. She will, in all likelihood, be shaping the law for our children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, depending upon your age and family status now.